Brothers and sisters, if you think money is the source of life, today I'm here to topple the idol you've been worshiping without even realizing it. You may have a finance degree, business skills, and even a wallet full of cash. But if you don't understand this principle, you're still operating under a flawed system. Money is not the source, God is the source. I once asked an entrepreneur, what do you need to start a business? He replied, capital. I said, then you're not ready. Because if you think you need money to start, you don't yet understand the kingdom. You see, the world teaches you that money is power. Babylon teaches you that money is the starting point. But I'm telling you today, with all the authority of a kingdom ambassador, that money is just a tool, not the source. Scripture, Genesis 1:28. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over. Let me open your eyes. Before there was currency, God gave humanity three things. Blessing, spiritual empowerment. R, fruitfulness and productivity, creativity and productivity. San, stewardship, responsibility, authority to manage. There wasn't a single coin in the Garden of Eden. No banks. No investment accounts. Yet they lacked nothing. Why? Because they had the most important thing. They had the authority of the king. Here's the truth. When God created you, he didn't give you money, he gave you territory, potential, and a mandate to manage. You don't need money to succeed. You need to recognize the territory you've been authorized to steward. You don't need to beg for more money. You need to understand kingdom principles to unlock the value you already have. I've said this at global conferences. Success doesn't come from what you have. It comes from the obedience you show to what God has entrusted to you. Wealth isn't money. It's the result of faithfulness with what you've been given. Faithful stewardship creates the economic flow of the kingdom. It's multiplication from within, not dependence on external markets. So, if money isn't the source and you are an authorized steward, there's a critical question you must face in the next section. Which system are you operating in? The kingdom or Babylon? Get ready. Because in the next part, I'll expose the entire economic structure of Babylon. The system that has enslaved billions without them even knowing it. Don't leave your seat. You're about to be freed from a system that's held you captive for far too long. Brothers and sisters, if you're living by Babylon's principles without realizing it, you may be bowing to a system that God has destined to collapse. Let me make this clear. You don't need to live in poverty to honor God. Nor do you need to be rich to prove you're blessed. The question isn't, do you have money? But are you living in the kingdom system or the Babylon system? Babylon isn't just a city, it's a system. It's a culture. An economic mindset built to replace dependence on the kingdom with dependence on debt. Scripture, Revelation 18:2. Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons. And verse 11, the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Do you see? When Babylon falls, the world's entire commercial system collapses with it. Why? Because Babylon's economic system is built on borrowing instead of creating, hoarding instead of distributing, fear of lack instead of trust in the Father. It trains you from childhood to be a consumer, not a creator. It teaches you to buy things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people. you don't even know. Babylon builds banks on fear. It uses credit scores to define human worth. It says you're not enough. But if you sign here, we'll temporarily make you feel like you are awkward. That's how you become a slave while thinking you're free. Babylon doesn't bind you with whips, it seduces you with discounts. It doesn't lock your house, it sends you credit cards. And the most dangerous part, it mixes with religious systems, so much so that some think the more money I have, the more blessed I am. No, in the kingdom, wealth is a tool to fulfill a vision, not a measure of spiritual value. In the kingdom, you live by principles. In Babylon, you live by market reactions. In the kingdom, you multiply what you have. In Babylon, you borrow what you don't have. In the kingdom, you are a steward of the king. In Babylon, you are a debtor to the system. Where are you? I know some of you are thinking, so what do I do? Pastor, I live in the world. I have a family. Bills. Debt. That's why you need to understand how the kingdom economy works, where you're not a wage slave to money, but a steward of wealth to fulfill a mission. Stay with me for the next part. I'll show you how the kingdom system operates and why, when you operate correctly, you don't need to chase money, because it will be added to you as a reward for faithfulness. Brothers and sisters, in Babylon, you sweat to make a living. But in the kingdom, you live to fulfill a mission, and wealth is supplied to accomplish it. If Babylon builds its economy on fear and borrowing, the kingdom establishes its economy on stewardship, purpose, and multiplication. You weren't born to chase money. You were born to fulfill a vision from the king. And when you live aligned with that purpose, all resources will be added to you. Ahmed, scripture, Matthew 25 to 14:30, the parable of the talents. Do you remember that story? Jesus describes a master who entrusted talents to his servants. One received 5, another 2, and another 1. What did the ones with 5 and 2 talents do? They stewarded, they multiplied. And the third, he protected his talent, but in truth, that he was unfaithful because he didn't act according to the king's will. Notice, the one who didn't multiply was called what? Not poor, but a wicked and lazy servant. Why? Because in the kingdom, failing to steward equals rebellion. You weren't given wealth to hoard, you were given it to produce for the kingdom. The kingdom doesn't reward the best negotiators. It rewards the faithful. You might say, I don't have much. I ask, what have you done with what you have? You might say, I only have a small idea. And I say, 1 talent is still a responsibility. If you don't use it, you lose it. And say, the kingdom principle is, to those who have, more will be given, not because they have, but because they steward well. Listen closely now. In the kingdom, prosperity doesn't come from getting rich, it comes from doing right. Wealth doesn't come from the system, it comes from faithfulness to the mission. Success isn't about how much money you have. It's about whether you fulfill what you were sent to do. Abundance isn't given for you to enjoy. It's given for you to distribute for the kingdom's purpose. You're not a consumer. You're a distributor, a kingdom agent. You're not meant to hoard. You're entrusted to invest in what yields results for the king. The kingdom has its own investment system. It's called sowing. You don't invest for profit. You sow into the right soil at the right time for the right vision And that's where the promise of Luke 6:38 comes to life. Give, and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. So, if the kingdom operates by stewardship and purpose, the question now is, who are you in this system? A consumer or a steward of the king? Stay with me for the next part. I'll help you identify your true role in the kingdom's economic system, so you not only know the source and understand the principles, but live as an authorized distributor of heaven's wealth. Brothers and sisters, you weren't born to survive in the economic current. You were born to rule in it. Alving. I'm not here today to teach you how to get rich. I'm here to awaken you to your true role. You're not a worker paying bills. You're not waiting for inflation to drop. You're not trembling at every market fluctuation. You are an authorized steward of the king in heaven's economic system. You weren't called to live just enough. You were sent to distribute resources to restore the areas that sin has corrupted. Scripture, 1 Corinthians 4:2. Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. Ablom. You see, God isn't looking for super creative people. He's looking for faithful people. You don't need to have everything just operate correctly with what you have. The question today isn't how much do you have, but how are you stewarding it? The question isn't what did you earn this month, but what did you invest in the king's mission this month? Every person in the kingdom is a director of heaven's resource distribution. If you're a nurse, you distribute healing. If you're an engineer, you distribute order and efficiency. If you're a homemaker, you distribute kingdom culture in your family. If you're an entrepreneur, you distribute systems that make society function rightly. Your job isn't about earning a living. It's the channel through which the kingdom flows. Your work is where you exercise your kingdom economic ministry, not where you seek financial security. I once asked someone, what do you do? He said, I work in banking. I replied, no, you're distributing principles of faithfulness and accuracy through the financial system. Brothers and sisters, if you see your job only as a means to make money, you've lost your ministry without realizing it. You are a kingdom official. You don't need a pulpit to have a ministry. Your desk, your cashier counter. Your construction site, your boardroom. That's where you exercise your kingdom stewardship. You are not a victim of the market. You're not defined by the Dow Jones, CPI, or gold prices. You operate in a parallel system, the kingdom system, where provision comes not from the earth, but from heaven. I was young, and now I am old. Yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging for bread. Psalm 37, Asalim v'chamesh. Moving forward, now that you know who you are and where you stand in the kingdom system, the question remains, how do you escape Babylon? How do you fully operate by kingdom principles in your economic life? Don't miss the final part, because I'll give you 5 specific principles to shift from the world system to the kingdom system, not just in thought, but in action. And you'll never live as a debtor again. You'll live as an authorized steward. Part 5, how to escape Babylon and step into the kingdom's economic system. Brothers and sisters, you weren't saved just to go to heaven. You were delivered from Babylon to operate the kingdom's economy right here on earth. And we've come a long way, you've seen. Money isn't the source. Authority is the root of wealth. Babylon is a system of control. built on fear and debt. The kingdom is a system of stewardship, purpose, and distribution. You're not a market victim. You're a kingdom steward. Now it's time to act, not with emotion, but with principle. Not with tears, but with kingdom strategy. Today, I'm giving you 5 practical steps to escape Babylon and step into operating in the kingdom's economy. Step 1. Get out of debt. Restore your freedom. Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. You cannot rule if you're still a slave. Debt is Babylon's shackle. The kingdom doesn't operate by borrowing, it operates by entrustment. Start today. Make a plan to pay off debt. Cut up credit cards, if necessary, and decide, I will no longer be a servant to any system except my king. Step 2. Prioritize stewardship over consumption. People of the kingdom, you're not judged by what you consume, but by what you steward. Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And if you can't steward Osuta, you're not worthy of $1. Ling. If you spend your entire paycheck every month, the kingdom can't entrust you with more. Track every expense. Record every dollar. Pray before you shop, because in the kingdom, resources are sacred and stewards are priests. Step 3. Live by vision, not by impulse. You weren't born to spend money. You were born to fulfill a mission. Set a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year vision. Every expense, investment, and financial decision must serve that vision. Matthew 6:33. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. This isn't a magic trick. It's the kingdom's economic formula. Step 4. Sow strategically. Don't sow randomly. The kingdom operates by the principle of sowing, but not every soil is good soil. 2 Corinthians 9:6-10 says, whoever sows generously will also reap generously. But sowing in the right soil at the right time for the right purpose is critical. Don't sow out of emotion. Don't give under pressure. Learn to sow by divine guidance and trust that the king will protect your harvest. Step 5. Invest in what impacts the kingdom. The king doesn't give you resources to build your personal palace. He gives them to expand his influence. Ask, how are the resources I hold serving the kingdom? Are they raising my children in kingdom principles? Are they freeing my community from oppression? Are they building the church according to the kingdom model? Are they restoring heaven's order on earth? If not, you're spending on Babylon without realizing it. And I close with this declaration. True prosperity doesn't come from what you possess, but from the faithfulness you show with what you've been given. You don't need more money to start living the kingdom life. You just need to operate rightly with what you already have. Today, declare as a kingdom steward, I am no longer a debtor. I am no longer a consumer. I am a steward. I am a distributor. I live for the kingdom's purpose. I will live empty. Be empty and leave a kingdom legacy for the next generation. The sermon ends, but your kingdom journey is just beginning. Step out of Babylon and into your true role. An ambassador sent by the king to operate heaven's economy right where you live. Don't defull the empty. Pour out everything the king has placed in your hands so that when you return to him, he will say, well done,